Tobias, there's been a lot of recent focus on countries moving towards more inclusive institutions. Look at the 2024 Nobel Prize winners. Your research offers a slight warning, perhaps, or a caution, perhaps, towards that, right? So trying to eliminate elite patronage too quickly can lead to violence, can lead to instability, and that instability can be very costly for countries in terms of growth and development. Does your work suggest that for fragile states, then, the ideal of a rent-free economy is a goal we can only achieve after we've secured peace and stability?
So look, I think that the current focus on institutions is very valuable. I think that some of the work that gets a bit neglected in this discussion is some of the earlier work, including that done by Douglas North, the limited access order framework that came out about 2010, that book, Violence and Social Orders, and Mushtaq Khan's Political Settlements book, which also came out about 2010. And I think their way of thinking about institutions, at least to me, is a little bit more nuanced and I think a little bit more useful, because it's fine to come to a country and say, hey, look, you should have open institutions. But that assumes that elites have an incentive and a willingness and a capacity to create those institutions and enforce those institutions. I think where Khan and North come in is by saying, actually, institutions emerge from these very long-run historical processes through which, over time, elites who are stuck in this very complicated repeat game. Over time, they realize that the best way to grow the economy and maximize their own self-interest, maximize their own returns, is by institutionalizing property rights, institutionalizing individual rights, institutionalizing the underpinnings of a free market economy. Right? So over time, if you have sufficient stability, if elite planning horizons can be sufficiently extended, elites begin to see that actually fighting all the time is a bit of a waste, it's a bit of a pain. Having massive distortions in your economy, yes, it helps you keep the elite bargain together, but we'd be able to actually all get richer if we eliminated some of those distortions. And over time, and there's going to be decades or centuries, if elites can reach that conclusion that actually we are all served, that elites are served, that elites have an interest in having an impersonal state that can enforce property rights and can operate neutrally between elites, we all have an incentive in having that. That is what North calls the doorstep conditions for an open access order, for a liberal, democratic, market-based economy. But if we come in before elites see they have an incentive of that, then you're very unlikely to be successful. You're imposing an institutional system, or trying to impose an institutional system, in which, frankly, the people with the guns don't welcome that institutional system. And if the people with the guns don't welcome an institutional system, it's going to be very hard to enforce that system. So I think I've given a very long answer and perhaps a not very clear answer to your question, Richard, but I think the point is to say that, yes, unless elites want open access institutions, liberal, democratic, market-based institutions, unless they see themselves as having an interest in the establishment and sustainment of those institutions, it's going to be very hard for any external actor to come in and introduce them. Because at the end of the day, it's local political elites that have the coercive power to see those institutions implemented and enforced. And if that elite consensus is not there, what we end up having is a situation like in Afghanistan or other FCD countries, where you have thousands of pages of legislation and regulation that are very adherent to international good practice, that look very good on paper, but have very limited and very distorted bearing on what happens in the real world, because elites act with impunity in ignoring those rules and those regulations and those pieces of legislation.